Hi, I'm Cinnamon Cooney, the Art Sherpa, and today I'd love to show you this mystical mirror landscape. I really love this piece. It's a lot of fun, but they're surprisingly easy and simple techniques, and if they're explained to you, you're going to be able to paint it too. So that's my plan, is to explain to you every step of this. If you want to know what materials we're using in this project, you can find them in the description below or in the materials list up ahead in the video. So all I really need from you is, if you're feeling super optimistic, you could hit that subscribe button now, but at least grab your paint, grab your brushes, and come back and meet me at this easel right now, because we have a painting to do. Come on. I'm so glad you decided to join me, and I just really want to say that I think you're going to love this project. This is a great project for a new painter. The material behind me that you see on my canvas is an acrylic canvas board. These come in packs. They're very inexpensive. They have a hard, stiff surface, and the surface is coated with gesso already, and it has a little bit of tooth, which makes it ideal for painting, and also it's ideal for budgets. But for this project, remember, it's not specifically the size of your canvas you want to worry about. It is the place where you put the reflection line. So you can do this in art journal books, on big canvases, on small canvases, as long as we do this first part here really well, which is I'm going to come around here and I'm going to find the space. If I imagine that my canvas is divided into thirds, just a little bit below my visual thirds line, and I'm going to make a nice line. You find that space on whatever ground you're painting on. Just break it up into thirds in your mind. You could also measure it out if you're a very technical or precise person, because that's always okay. And come down just a hair below that to make that reflection line. Coming over to the materials, I have heavy body acrylic paint today. I have Dog's Eating Purple, Phthalo Blue, Quinacridone Magenta, Cad Yellow Medium Hue. Hue is a great way to save money on your paint. Titanium White, and this strange milky little plop here is glazing liquid, acrylic glazing liquid by Golden. This helps slow down the drying times of my paints and allows me to also make a glaze, which means that I can do a thin, transparent color over another color. Now, I use this in my studio because it's hot and dry in here, really specifically very dry, and that means my paint dries out a little quicker than I would like it to for blending effects, because blending in acrylic painting is done by seaming the two wet edges of the paint together. I'm going to show you how I do that. Sounds complicated. It's actually really easy. I'm going to take a nice number 12 bright. See this right here? It's nice and square, and I'm going to prime it, and how I prime it, if you're at home, is I dip this in my cup and I take off the excess water. Now, the filaments on my brush are very firm, and if your brush is soft, it may uptake too much water and make your acrylic paint a little too thin and watery. So if that's the case, be sure and wipe that off on a paper towel to get the excess water off. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pull out just a smidge, a smallish amount of my yellow here, and you can see I just coming on the edge, and how little I have on my paint bristles here, right? And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to visit my white, and I'm going to pull it out too. I don't mix the two of these together because that would use up all my paint and waste a lot of my money and my time, because I might not be able to get the exact colors that I want. Now I'm going to add the glazing liquid to mine because I need it. You may or may not. And I'm going to come here to this line, my imaginary reflection line, and in a fan, I'm going to brush up in a fan shape. Can you think of a fan? If you can think of a fan, that's the shape I'm trying for, radiating out this yellow. A lot of times when I teach horizons or skies, I like us to be very level. But in this case, we're implying the light rays coming up, so that's important to radiate it out. How are you guys doing today? Throwing a lot of stuff at you. Hopefully you're hanging in with me. Can you see this light yellow fan as it's happening? Where I need to have a nice sharp line, I go to the edge of my brush, and then where I want to have these nice fat strokes, I stroke on the wide part of my brush. All right, so I have that nice fan. That's that beautiful light coming up. Now I need to seam into this fan my next color, which is going to be an orange. So I'm going to pull a little of my yellow out and get the smallest amount of my red here. It takes very little quinacridone to tint or tone your yellow. We'll pull out a little white and a little glaze, and I'm going to continue this fan, seaming these two together in a fan, radiating out. Yes, our black hills are going to cover a lot of our work here, but we do it anyways because it creates a smooth and blended effect, and we want that. And if you need to blend right there, see I'm just going softly, softly, softly. The two wet edges help that blend. Pulling in a little more yellow, a smidge more quinacridone until I get to an orange. If I need to, a little white, and then I'm going to come and make sure I've got my fan on this side. Remembering, yes, I may paint some of this out with my wonderful, wonderful black treed hills, but I'll be so glad it's here. I'm going to grab a little of my glazing liquid because that can help me sometimes when even in this it gets too dry to blend. Look at how that does. That's very, very helpful. And that's what people don't know about acrylics is they can paint just like oils with the right equipment or the right techniques. Grabbing a little more of my quinacridone, a little more of my yellow. This is a slightly stronger color, and I'm pulling this out here and adding this in right here at the center. So slightly more orange right here. Now one thing that I'm going to want is to have a good ring of the quinacridone buffering between this yellow and my blue and purple because my blue and purple can be grayed out by the yellow, and I definitely don't want that. Alright, I feel like I have a nice radiating blend here. Hopefully that was a surprise for you as you saw it happen. I'm going to pull out quite a lot more Quin Magenta here and really load my brush. Look how my brush is really loaded. But I'm going to tint it with some white, just a small amount, and pull out some of my glazing so I have a good blend. And make sure that I have a nice quinacridone band that will be buffering the orange from the purple. This is a thing that messes up a lot of new students I see with sunsets is they don't know those two colors are going to blend together in a weird way if they touch. So the trick about that will be making sure we have our quinacridone band and also making sure our brush is really, really free of any yellow paint. So those two things. Pulling that out. Know it's going to be painted over anyways. I don't have to be as specific right here because I know it's going to be painted over, but I still want to take that brush stroke through so that I get the good blended effect. Definitely, definitely, definitely. I'm going to wipe off my brush, and I personally am going to grab some glaze and see if I can't even soften this particular seam a little more even with the glaze. And it's nice in these areas you know are going to be covered by mountains that you can even practice that seaming. You just want to do it real soft. This is like dusting. From my experience, this reminds me of blending makeup. It's just a very soft blend. Now I'm going to rinse out my brush super good, which means I'm going to be just really kind of pressing this brush down carefully into the cup, you know, trying to work that paint out, dragging it off, and just getting it as clean from the yellow as I can. Or I've got to switch to another brush. Those are my two choices. But I'd like to use the same brush, so I'm going to just rinse out really, really well. I'm going to take a little of my phthalo blue into my quinacridone. I'm going to add a little white. It's a beautiful color, isn't it? And grab some more of my glaze. And then just come with this seam, which is quite beautiful, isn't it? Isn't that dramatic? I find this sky to be so dramatic, and it looks really spectacular on the wall, and it's really a lot of fun to paint. And what I love about it is that you can be really new to painting and succeed at this. And that's pretty special. So just blending those two. Blending, 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 blending. A little more purple maybe here with the quinacridone and the blue. Just make sure that's nice and feathered there. Very dramatic. And again, we know some of this isn't going to show. Some of this is going to be lost. Pressing that down. As I press it down, you can see the pigment gets left on the canvas. And I'm going to wipe my brush off. And now I'm going to just get a little bit moist again, drag it off, and then take the phthalo blue and the dog's Indian purple, and I'm going to mix it together. Add, without getting in the area where you had yellow, a little white. And I'm going to grab this blending and come up and do the deep dark part of this starry sky. Now I might have to go back and forth up here where this is tucked in to my easel, but yours might be laying in your lap and not as challenging to paint the edge with is what I have, where it's locked in to my easel so it doesn't go flying off into space, which could totally happen in my art studio. I don't know what crazy shenanigans might happen in your art studio, but I know in my art studio, it can be crazy. All right. Letting this dry for a minute, but we have our nice radiating effect. Something that I like to do is I like to take my purple and my blue, maybe a little white, come on the edge of my brush now and just create this back and forth little uneven drama. You see that? Very soft, still radiating, just enforcing that drama. Interesting sky that we have going on. Clock just coming around. Isn't that fun? Let that dry a little bit. I might want to come and put some more purple drama between these two fields. So I'll need to let those dry a little. I'm going to rinse out my brush super well. And I may even switch to a smaller brush. This is a number 8 bright. And so it's a little smaller than my number 12 and gives me a little more control. And I'm going to start again with what I learned. And I'm going to come here and make a little area for the reflection that's similar to what I have up top. So grab a little of your white pulled out from your paint, and then grab, that was yellow, grab a little yellow and then get some white. That's a moment that you have when you're painting sometimes. You don't know where you're coming or going. I'm going to come along below my line here and just make a nice yellow line. And I'm going to, not as big as what I did up top, I'm going to shorten the direction of that, see, but I'm still fanning out. I'm mimicking what I've had here. If you need to wipe off your brush to get off the excess paint like I'm doing right there, you can. I'm trying to avoid getting into my purple. There, I've got a nice orange going. See, I just pulled some extra quin and some extra yellow and you get a nice orange going. And I'm going to very lightly back and forth. So one of the things that helps me, you'll notice that it seems like my paint's going on very, very easily. Coating on this particular board is very nice. It's not a special board. This is actually an economy board. These are sold in packs at art supply and craft stores. So they're not, particularly pro equipment, but they give me a nice result. I'm adding a little white to that and just coming around and making sure that I have this sort of dramatic space for reflection. Leading those together. I'm going to rinse out my brush. Some quinacridone and some white. Just make sure I'm repeating what I have going on up here, but not exactly the same, but close enough where I will feel that it's a beautiful mirror. Some of this is going to be painted out with our black mountains too, but I'm not worried about it. Just the quin coming forward. I'm going to pull some of these lines in like starbursts. This is just the edge of my brush right here, dusting in. That's all it is. Edge of my brush dusting in. I'm going to come grab some of my phthalo blue and mix it in to my quinacridone. Get some white so it really shows for what it is. And pull that wonderful orchid color. I feel like that's what this is like, an orchid color. Into what I have. I might need some blending medium, which I'm feeling like I do. My paint is drying on me and not doing a nice blend. And so see, it happens to me too. You might live in a place where it's just naturally very dry, or your home might be naturally very dry. Oh, I had a lot of blue there. I don't panic, I just go with it. That's an important thing. Just if you get a little color on there you don't expect, it loads into your brush and it hasn't come out, and you're painting and it comes out. I'm just going to go over that with my purple, blend that together, and not be stressed about that. One, if it was a big mistake, I would let the paint dry and paint over it. And if it's little, then it might be something that works out for us in the end. So we're going to let it go. We're going to take a risk, have an adventure. Have an adventure. All right, pulling this out. Yeah, I know a lot of this is painted over and you're working hard for what's painted over, but it'll have a big result when you do it right. Let's do the rest of this with our dark purple and blue. A smidge of white in that. And enough blending medium where we get a nice blend. Let's pull that pretty far forward. These bands of color can be smaller than the ones up here because it's a foreshortened reflection. Just covering this up, even though we know it's going to be covered with the black. Not worried about it, but we're just taking the time. Just soft. My pressure's very soft. And that's how I succeed at this. So what can mess you up when you're new at painting is putting too much paint on the brush, not enough paint on the brush, and pressing down on the canvas too hard. So you might be thinking like, wow, I can't paint. It's like, not that. You just need to practice lightening up. Oh, I like this part here. And I'm working this edge here because I have mine really locked in. Hopefully yours is more accessible than mine. But I don't mind. I don't mind. Just painting this in. Creating this wonderful, wonderful drama. When we put the stars on it, is going to look so incredible. It's just a soft, soft, happy blend. Alright. Take that to when you're happy with it. I'm going to rinse this out as much as I can. And I'm going to come get just my quinacridone and a little bit of white. So we're going to come here with our quinacridone and just very lightly add a little bit of this pink drama. Radiating out. Not a whole lot, just a little. Right over the top here where it needs to be. Just a little bit of that coming out. And then let's add that there. That's a nice mixture. You can see all I have on my brush here. And I'm going to just come here and just make sure that the space between these two has lots and lots of this fabulous pink. Just radiating out. All right. Let's rinse our brushes, and it's a good time to get clean water. Take a deep breath and stretch around and move if you need to. Let's continue to add in some purple to create some more drama to the sky. I'm going to pick my number 12 brush up again. I've got clean water, and I'm ready to continue this wonderful project. I'm going to moisten my brush like we talked about before. Pull out a little of this purple and a smidge of the quinacridone to warm it up. Adding some white so I can really see the color that I'm adding to the painting. Almost an orchid, and I'll apply some glaze to it as well. As light as you can, just go ahead and apply between the fields of the dark blue some of this really interesting dramatic purple. If you need to, pick up a little more of the pure dioxazine so that you're being sure you're getting a strong perspective of what you're looking at. You'll notice that I'm allowing these edges to be very uneven and up and down. Very dramatic. I'm going to want to pull some of this down here. Just some to the sky. Just creating a little of that drama. If ever you feel like you painted out a color you need, remember you can always just go back with a little bit of it and blend it in. This is something you can adjust, and you can create the most perfect, incredible sunrise or sunset that your imagination can provide you with. I'm going to also add some of this drama a couple places down here in my reflection. Just a little bit. Just want to have that in both spots. I'm going to rinse out my brush and just make sure this upper part looks like it's ready for stars. Take a little of my phthalo blue, a little of my dioxazine purple. It's okay if some of the orchid picks up into it. And just make sure that I've got a nice sky. Sometimes people think that only watercolors can do these kinds of effects, or only oils. Acrylic is pretty spectacular at the kinds of effects and techniques it can do. It's a very versatile medium, and I'm a really big fan of it. I love it a lot. Just pulling that in. It's true we'll lose some to the trees, but we don't mind. And do the same down on your water. You want this surface to feel glassy so that when we put the stars down here, it gives that smooth, deep water look. Just blending it. You can do this. On the edge of my brush here, having a good time. I hope you are too. It'll be interesting if you're painting with friends or your family to see how each of you has a slightly different painting. And to that end, no, yours is not supposed to look exactly like mine. That shouldn't be your goal. Your only goal should be to duplicate these kinds of effects and have a really good time. Now I'm going to add the stars to this, and I like to use a splatter technique when I do that. Some thoughts on splatter techniques. The first and most important thought is it's very, very messy. And if you are a person who cannot abide mess or it causes you a great deal of anxiety, it is perfectly acceptable to go, you know, I'm going to just put in every star individually on its own. And just take the extra time to do that and don't feel bad. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you're kind of like throw caution to the wind, I'm ready to go ahead and do the splatter. In the eye card, which is the floating eye, there is a link to a video with more information on splattering at the timer it is, and I demonstrate toothbrush, splatter, and whacking a brush together as a way to get that done. And I highly recommend, if you've never splattered before, that you check that one out here real quick. So let's put out our special tool for splattering. I have fluid paint here, titanium white. Fluid paint or soft body paint means in acrylic painting that the additives that give the paint the strong textural body that does palette knife and shows all the brush strokes are not in there, and instead it has an agent that is self-leveling and very soft. It's closer to what you might think of in house paint, though not like house paint at all. But it's just a softer texture, and you can, if you need to save money, just use craft paint here. I'm using golden fluid, but whatever you have is just fine. I've got a splatter brush, which is this interesting looking basting brush. I've had people tell me they've had a lot of success with the silicone basters. I haven't done that yet, so I can't say one way or the other, but that might be a fun thing to try later. I have these all on the edge of my brush, and what I do is I like to squeeze between my thumb and forefinger to disperse it. I come here, I stand back because I know I'm going to end up with freckles, and I add my stars. Some of the drops will be bigger and some of the drops will be smaller, and that's what creates kind of my galaxy effect. You can always practice splattering on a scratch piece of paper, and remember, it's a messy, messy habit. Squeezing between the two bristles and adding some more stars, making sure that I have a nice collection of stars in my water as well. Now, this is a good time to clean up and also dry your painting. Okay, now that that's dry, I'm going to start sketching in my mountains. I'm going to sketch this in paint, but you feel like it's okay to sketch it in chalk first. That way, if you're not feeling completely confident with how you lay in a painting, you're not committed to or trying to figure out how to paint out a big black line if you don't like it. I'm going to use, again, soft-bodied paint because it's going to be very fluid, it's not going to leave any brush stroke, and it's going to make an easier job of all these wiggly, triggly branches that I have to do. And I don't like to mix and match black, so I'm going to put out a small amount of that. Move my clean water here. Get a number 6 bright. This is a number 6 bright. And I'm going to sketch in my mountains. So the first thing I do, I know I'm going to want them to come down here, is I'm going to come up to a little above the halfway point between my water line and the top of my canvas and make a nice sloping uneven mountain down to the bottom here. And then it's going to curve. It looks like it's just about 1/4 of an inch below my water. I'll trace this out. That will help me do its mirror when I've got to do it in a minute. And I'm going to do on the other side. Now, I'm not going to make it perfectly the same as its friend because that would be weird. It shouldn't be the same. It should be a slightly different valley. This side of the mountain won't be as eroded in the same way as that side. Following that, that's pretty nice. Now I'm going to imagine, and I don't know if you have this filter on your phone, that I've got kind of a reflection happening here. And I'm going to do a very soft mirror of that mountain there, coming off this side. Doesn't have to be totally perfect. I just like to keep it about the same shape. And then this one over here. You might make some adjustments as you go to give it the nice reflection. paint this all in between these black lines black. I'm going to switch up to a bigger brush to make short time of hard work. Number 8 bright, actually. And I'm just going to paint that all in black. Could you use your heavy-bodied black for this? Yes, you could. You just might want to thin it down a little bit so that it's a little more fluid, and you can do that with water. I just like to tell you exactly what I'm doing in my process so that there's no tricks, so that I'm not holding something back from you that you need to be successful at this project. You know how much I love it when you share your art with me. I like to see what you're painting, see what you're doing. You can always just find me on TheArtSherpa.com if you want to share a painting with me. Tell me what you thought about it. Just painting that in. Just a nice, even, solid black from this silhouette. Okay. I think that drama is pretty spectacular. And while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to do my star detail now, just in case my branches wander to where my star detail is going to be. Now I'm going to use a 10/0 detail brush. I really love these. They give me just the finest lines, and it makes short work of what I've got to do. I'm going to get it wet. I'm going to load a little bit. You can see I just get it right onto the bit like a little bead, like a little thing. I'm going to find a star that I like that's maybe a little bit bigger and define it. And then I'm going to go straight up in a straight line, straight up, and one straight down. This is the twinkle. One that comes straight out. My pressure is very soft, and my brush is very fine, and the paint is very fluid. And these things together allow me to create these fine, delicate lines. That's all it takes. I do rest my wrist on the canvas, which is why for me, you can see I'm adding from the center here. And maybe you can add even little smaller little striations going out. You can make some of these a little bit longer. Just think about it. Just design it. This is the twinkle in your sky. It needs to be magical. And then I like to do a couple of barely defined radiating circles out. It's good to put a couple of these in different sizes around your canvas. So some are bigger and some are smaller. I don't think you can over twinkle. I haven't seen it yet. If you feel you've over twinkled, well, I think that you've probably done something pretty special. Alright, I'm just taking that out, adding my twinkles, adding my twinkles. Got 3 there. I feel like I could use a 4th one up here. We'll see. We'll see. right there maybe. I just find a dot on my splatter that I like. You know, it says to me, hey, I could be a little star. Trust me. Believe in me. So I've got some nice sprinkles there. It's a good time if you want to give your star a color. I like to make mine yellow. You could make them red or blue. I come in the center with a little bit of yellow and just add that. And I think that that's neat because it implies that these are special stars. Rinse out your brush. And let's talk trees. So I'm going to show you how I do my trees, and I know that's always harder for you at home, and I totally get that. I'm going to try to give you some tips and advice that I think will help you. One is that don't let your branches get too short or too orderly. In other words, you want them to reach out into the sky, and you also want them to be very free and messy because these are wild trees. These are trees that have grown somewhere in the wild, and so you want them to feel like that. So, you know, try not to like make every quarter inch a branch. Break it up, change up those patterns. I'm going to draw these trees in the center here just a little bit taller overall than the trees as they come up the ridge, and their branches are going to really weave. Another thing is on your trunks, they should be thicker at the bottom where they're touching the earth, and then taper very fine as they go up. Let's see if we can do that. I'm going to take this detail brush and load a bead. You can see that bead. I'm going to come down here. It's dry enough to rest my wrist, and I'm going to plant my most important tree. This is my focal tree, so it might take a couple strokes to say, hey, I think his trunk's going to be this wide. Just bring it up. And sometimes my pressure gets so light it's almost like I'm not even painting on the canvas at all. And that is okay. That's just me knowing I can come back and make changes if I need to. It's easier to add paint than take it away. You can absolutely fix any mistakes you make in acrylic painting once it's dry. You just let it dry and paint it all out and over it. But that can be frustrating when you're new to painting, so it's better to just be like, I can add a little. So he's going to be about that long. Now I'm going to add a little friend to him to the side. But something I'm going to do that's super important is he's not going to be perfectly vertical. He's going to be wandery. Do you see how wandery he is? Also, whenever my brush strokes stop leaving a beautiful line of paint, I go reload. There he is. He's a little bit tribbly, weird. I'm going to come over here and add a tree. Go up, but he doesn't have to be as tall as these down here. He's shorter maybe. He can be. He can go right off the canvas. It's really your hill. It's up to you how you want to do it. Now I'm going to just do another little friend here. Notice how he's not really a straight line. Hopefully you can see this. One of the hard things to show is a dark line over a dark area. But believe you me, to your eye, you're going to really see that. So what I like to do, because I have to rest my hand on the canvas, is I start this side and then I travel through here building my trees. I make sure that I add lots of little grasses. These are little lines coming up. I'll show you down here where it's very bright so you can see how I do it. And I'm going to be doing this as I go along the whole mountain. Look at this. I'm just a little light grass. Just a little bit of forest floor here. It's very important. Okay? I'm going to be doing that all the way along here and adding trees. And they're not going to be, they're going to be wild trees. So I'm going to add lots of little branches just coming off all kinds of directions. And I may have to show you over the center so that you can see it really well. I'll finish painting this one in. And then I'm going to show you over the center so you can really see the detail that we're going for and how often our branches are going to cross each other. So I'll finish these two out and then they'll be dry by the time I get to it. So I won't have to worry about putting my hand in wet paint like I do. So I'm going to come down here and see he's got a little branch that comes off here and even crosses his friend. He's crowdy. So let's keep on this journey of the never-ending million branches. It's about what it feels like when you're in it. But believe it or not, this kind of paint work is good for you. Helps you relax. Helps you let things go. If you'll notice, I'm often branching out. Yeah, that's what I call it, branching out. I am going to come over here and say maybe this side has a little branch that goes up. This branch is going to be thinner and more delicate than the tree it's attached to. And he's going to have a little bit that reaches up here. They've got leaves, these trees, and they have to put those leaves out in the sun so that they can get their food when they're not in winter. And another little one here. You can see how I cross over his little branch, his tree friend here. And you might be wondering, what is she going to do with that? Well, that's sort of always interesting. Look, I'm going to cross this branch back. You can do that. You can cross the branch back. And if the line gets away from you, you can just come and paint it back in. And it's not a problem. What's very important about this is the fineness of the brush, how delicate it is, and how light your pressure is. As I come up here to the top, these branches will be very delicate, very refined. Just pulling them out there. See how he's just very, very, very stately. He's a statesman. But his friend, he's got some stuff happening too, so he's going to grow some branches out as well. And they're going to come a bunch of different places. These guys are intertwined. They share resources. Branches can go back in front of what we're looking at on the mountain. You could start a little twin trunk that's quite low that comes up here. See how that creates a nice little interweave? I'm just dipping and drawing these long, beautiful branches. Look at that. Just any place you've got a boo-boo, you just come and refine it. Take that time. So many, many branches to be added. One of the things to watch for is that your brush stays in nice condition. Sometimes the paint can build up on it, and I find the detail brush sometimes even needs to be washed out during projects. And I like to have a backup one if mine starts giving me grief for some reason. Same brush, just different, just a backup. That's just a trick that I have. Now I'm going to keep doing this technique, building out all these lovely little trees on the hill and grasses. I'm going to make sure my branches are long, that they divide often. Trees are emotionally hard, not because they're particularly hard to paint, but because we have such strong feelings about them and what they should be or shouldn't be. So sometimes when we paint our own versions of a tree, we can feel kind of not adequate or that it's harder than you might think, but really it's not. Just making sure the trunk is nice and shows up against this light. And branching out. And my branches sometimes cross even my own trunk. They weave. And that's what gives this piece its interwoven look that is so beautiful. Taking those little elbows and joints and breaking them up, opening up that branch. You can't really have too many branches, interestingly enough. So if you're a methodical person, feel like you can take the time that you want to paint it. Just the tip of my brush and just keep adding more. Adding a little branch there to just weave that out. And grass. Nice little grass that's defining these trees. So I'm getting here towards the end. I'm just creating long branches that weave together. They can be hard to see on the dark blue, but they'll still have a visual impact, and you've still got to take the time to design and create them. If you get tired while you're painting, go ahead and rest. Or get a cup of coffee or whatever you need to restore. People don't realize that painting can be really, really taxing. And especially when you're doing lots of detail like this, you're going to find yourself super relaxed. You're going to find yourself feeling a lot better. But your body just might need to rest. Your mind might need it too, and that's okay. An acrylic paint, you can finish at any time. All right, I need some more branches there. I see it. So many branches. I feel like after this you should have a fairly good understanding of branches. Now I'm going to make the reflection in the water. It's not going to be an exact picture of what's above. It's going to be reflection. It's going to be foreshortened. And we're going to generalize a little bit, but I will try to explain exactly what I'm doing so you can get an awesome result, which is my goal. I'm going to pull a little more of this black paint on my brush here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my grass to this reflection as I go around, because what I don't want is a smooth hill. Even as they go right here, we're going to want that slightly uneven edge all the way in the reflection. It will really help. Adding this little grass all the way around. Now, if you think of a fisheye lens, we have some of that happening here a little bit in this painting. And so some of the branches and events that are happening are going to be kind of curved back into the space. This isn't a piece created from observation, so we can do some more imaginative work like that. So see how I'm just pulling this over here? I'm adding the branches in the upper part and the trees, but I'm just being a little more general about it. Just weaving here, taking them off the edge, but not completely shown. Just taking them off the edge, but not completely shown. Shorter maybe. Still branching. Like we're seeing just the tops of this. Gonna bend this one over towards the left. Keeping my lines fairly fine. Just keep loading my brush. Just keep loading my brush. And implying that there is a nice, lovely reflection. That's happening. And I realized something that I really probably want to have in the reflection, but I didn't put, so I'm going to rinse out my brush, is maybe, like right here, one of my reflective stars. Just twinkling a little bit down there. What do you think of that? Twinkle a little star reflection down there too is a good idea. Rinse out my white. You can have his little friend here. And a little friend there. It's a very friendly little spot in the woods. Just keep going. Adding these little branches in the reflection. I'm not trying to completely duplicate it, just the general sense of it. How over the moon are you? You got through it. Doesn't really matter what speed you did it at. If you did it really, really fast, that's awesome. If it took you a little while, that's awesome too, because there's no actual speed in art. Unless you're in like one of those speed art competitions, and then obviously in that space there would be, but in general there's not. Just go at your own pace. Find your own relaxing center for it. I hope you love this dramatic landscape that we made with this fabulous sky. It's just really exciting to me. I enjoyed spending the day with you so much. If you thought this lesson was super cool and just life-changing or generally good, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so YouTube will notify you about when there are more. Don't forget to click that gear these days because you actually have to do the extra click. There's lots of new changes that are happening. I have a lot of fun bringing these lessons too. I love sharing them, but you know what I love more than sharing them? I love when you share them. When you share them with your friends so they get painting too, and especially when you share them with me, show me those finished projects because I really, really like to see what you did. It is amazing to see you guys find your own path through your own art journey. Be good to yourselves, be kind, know that you're creative and nobody has the right to take that from you. And hey, I want to see you at the easel really soon. Okay, bye-bye.